good morning, and welcome to the International Mastermind Think and Grow Rich show. My name is Galen Bingham. I am the leadership strategist, and I am just so excited to be with you guys today because normally we have some pretty interesting guests, but this is a masterclass session. So you get to hear from just the co-hosts on the subject of the brain, which is the 12th step to riches. And it is the broadcasting and the receiving station for all of this knowledge that you're getting from the universe. So great show. Hope you guys have something great to enjoy as we get into this conversation. And of course, I'm not here by myself. I've got a couple of amazing co-hosts. We're missing one, but we're going to try to do this without Dr. Peter James, who's out attending to some business and family matters at the moment. First, I want to bring in the co-host who only requires one name, Miss Pagine. Welcome. How you doing this morning?
I am so excited to be here. I'm alive and ready to take on the world. And one of the things that I'm so excited about, Galen, is being with you and, of course, with Anne, knowing that we were brought together to have this discussion at this time, which is phenomenal. So those of you that are watching, my name is Pagine. I am a keynote speaker on leadership at Pagine.com, and I'm also the founder of Power Women Worldwide, where women are bold, brave, seen, heard, and paid well. And you know what? Today, we're talking about the brain, and I love that that we are both the receiving and the sending mechanism through our brain. And there's nobody that I can even imagine who would be better as Anne McNeil, who's our other co-host. Then that woman sends and receives. And every time I receive one of her messages, I am lifted up. So hi, Anne.
Listen, I am excited not to try because we're going to do this without Dr. Peter James. So, Galen, the brain sends and receives, but it does not recognize try because the subconscious mind does not know the difference between what is true or false. So we're going to have a phenomenal show today. Dr. James, we love you, but we are going to get this party started talking about the brain and the power of the brain. And if it's okay with you, Galen, I'd like to share a little something from the book.
Galen? Absolutely. Go for it.
And it begins.
Well, you know, Napoleon Hill, when he tells us about the power of the brain, and yes, we know that it is a receiving and the sending station for the power of thought. As a contractor, I have tools and I have a toolbox. And one of the things that I started doing is packing my toolbox with different kinds of tools. And one of the tools that I put in my toolbox is a book. Actually, a number of books. But I also found a brain. Yes, an artificial brain that I now carry around in the toolbox. And the reason I do that is because oftentimes when we present, we're visual people. When we present to people, either in a keynote or workshops, it's amazing how we don't think about how we carry, manage, and use our own brain. And then when you take your brain and you connect it with another brain, which is what we're doing here as a part of this program this morning, then we connect it with the third brain. You cannot begin to imagine the power that you will have when you talk about what comes out of the thoughts that we all have as we mastermind any challenge, any problem, and the creation of the opportunities. So I just wanted to share that, Galen and Pekin, because I think it's very important when you just visualize your brain and how do you use it? That's what we're going to talk about today. How do you really tap into your own brain, but also tapping into the brains of others, but also understanding how people are tapping into your brain, for example, advertisers.
Absolutely. And I can tell you firsthand that advertisers spend billions of dollars to get into your brain. I worked for many years for one of the companies that probably spent the most on the planet, because we know how valuable it is how valuable it is to tap into your brain. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how do you understand the brain well enough to be able to use it to your advantage, because if you don't use it, then someone else will.
Exactly.
So, boy, this is going to be a great conversation. There are so many pieces of this chapter that I would love for us to focus on. And we've had so much conversation even before we went live. But before we get into this conversation, Pagine, it would be so helpful if you would just kind of talk about how all of these elements fit together, because we could and we have talked about each of these individually, but the real magic comes in how Napoleon Hill has thought to bring all these principles together. So I'd love for you to lead us into that conversation.
Oh, I'm going to lead this conversation because going back to what Ann and you were just saying in terms of advertising, the reason we do this week after week after week of sharing with you the 13 principles is that as you are present, your mind is saying, I am present to receive this information. And you will hear these 13 principles. You will notice, you will change. You will be lifted up. You will say, I haven't used that. Or, oh my gosh, I just used this week. So as you listen, think, how have you been using those 13 principles? And which principles do you need to focus on? Let's hear about the 13 principles now.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the MasterMind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
Okay, so there you have it. And this is a chapter where when you are thumbing through the book, you think, wow, this is a small chapter. There's only a few pages. So clearly it's not that significant, or else there would be more pages. But boy, that would be a mistake if you were to understand it in that fashion. There is so much packed into this. One part that I really want to bring our attention to, there's actually two that are really, really interesting. But one part I want to bring our attention to is on page 222, right there towards the bottom of the section. It says, it has been determined that there are from 10 billion to 14 billion nerve cells in the human cerebral cortex. And we know that these are arranged in definite patterns. The arrangements of these are not haphazard. They are orderly. And so when you think about that, it's for me, and I want to get your thoughts, Pagine, and then your thoughts, Ms. Ann. But it's so easy to think, oh, well, that's just a passing thought. That doesn't really mean anything. Or it's interesting. I keep hearing that same ad on television. We talk about advertising. It really doesn't mean anything. It's just happenstance. But Napoleon Hill suggests nothing is by happenstance. Everything is orderly. And if you just allow your brain to wander or go where someone may be leading you, then you are, by neglect, turning your thinking over to someone else.
Yes.
So, Pagine, you work with a lot of big companies who do a lot of advertising. What are your thoughts about this idea, my initial notion that all these small thoughts, they don't mean anything. They're just, the advertise. It's just kind of interesting.
I'm gonna say that all. So it's not only what those thoughts, what they're trying to implant in you, it's what you're allowing to be implanted, right? So your power always comes from your actions and your reactions. On that same page, I was reading at the top about the intangible force, and I have a note next to it that says the force is within me. And then the second note that I had written to myself based on that same page of 222 was trust my I am. So how do I relate that to those commercials and advertisements? Is, it's interesting because it seems like the shows that we watch tend to be, take this pill, take that pill, take that pill. I personally use it as a prompt for me to do what I choose to do, which is use it as a moment to do a meditative practice of I am healthy, I am amazing, I am strong, I am just energetic, I am so powerful. I've transmuted, we've used that in other words, those commercials into empowerment statements for me, because bottom line is, because there are 10 billion of these arranged in definite patterns, I'm going to be in control of how the message comes to me. I'm the one that's going to decide how I want to be thinking. I'm the one that's going to be able to create it. And this particular chapter is so powerful. I was actually thinking about Anne this morning. I was coaching somebody, and we were talking about how to use your brain to transform how you prepare yourself to receive. And for those of you that are watching, hey, Doretha, I'm glad that you're here. Hey, Frank, and oh, I'm so happy to see you, Mary, on this. This is great. Those of you that are writing in the comments, share about how you think about commercials. What do you do with your brain during those commercials? I think it's really important that we share. But I wanted to go back to this discussion that I had, and it was, how do I prepare my brain to receive the dollars that I choose to receive? And I was sharing how I've learned that, like lottery people who buy the lottery, they pay their money, they pay their money, they pay their money, they pay money, they get the lottery, the money just floods to them, and then they lose it within 5 years, they lose all the money that they have earned. And the reason for that is that they did not take charge of their brain. They did not allow themselves to be able to build their vessel within their brain of what they can receive. And it goes back to this line that I want to read to you. And this is on 225. It says, the method of mind stimulation through harmonious discussion of definite subjects among three people illustrates the simplest and most practical use of the mastermind. As I was sharing this story, and I was thinking about you, because what I realized, that when I had I had a huge contract that I received money, and I was very grateful for it. And I was grateful for all the people who helped me get the contract. But I realized that what I didn't do was what to do after the contract. And I knew you. It never dawned on me until this morning that I had not prepared my brain to say, reach out to Anne. What would Anne do with the abundance that was received in such a short term? How would and I thought about 5 people who, this is what they do. They know how to do it. But I had not prepared my brain. I had not been in a mastermind in such a way where I was surrounded by people who understood massive wealth and what to do with it. And so my bad is that, just went out, and I admit it, I know it, but I have transformed my life to say, I am the receiver, I am the giver, and I surround myself with people who know more than I do. What do you think, Anne?
Well, I think it all starts with that desire, Beguine and Galen both. And one of the things that we're learning about the brain and how we use it, it goes back to the 13 steps that we heard you sharing earlier in the program. And so when you came into that amount of money, the author tells us that your mastermind group of accountability can help you to determine what you should do with the money. Because again, going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, once our basic needs are met, then what? The realization and the manifestation of the other desires that you have, whether that's investing, whether that's giving, or whether that's serving, it all goes back to what is it that Beguine desires? What is it that you desire to do with the money? And again, not just having the money, if you will, and because you know how to make it now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, as you think about the receiving and the sending, we talked about that, it then becomes a matter of, and I want to go back to something else the author talked about creative imagination. So when you think about the money, is it a life of significance? Is it a legacy leaving? What is it that you desire? And I'm willing to bet you that whatever it is you come up with, your brain has like a magnet. Everything you've heard and everything you've seen in the past is sitting there inside your subconscious mind. It's not dormant, it's sitting there, and it's waiting for an opportunity to be tapped into with the money, whether it's cash or some other kind of, we want to get into cryptocurrency and stuff like that. But whatever it is waiting to be manifested. And I'm positive that in order for you to have received that, whatever it was, you desired it prior to receiving it, going back to the desire.
Totally agree. And this is, this is such a great conversation, because I think that one of the things that what you just said, and Galen, you just, is not only do we have the desire, we made a definite purpose, we're clear about what we want in terms of the desires. But one of the things that I'm gaining from what you just said was, and it goes back to this sentence of, through harmonious discussion of definite subjects, that oftentimes, right, this is the mission, we're going to do this, but then we don't go deeper. Sometimes we just go walk away. Yay, we got it, good for us. But we don't come back to the mastermind or the group of people to say, all right, so I did that. Where do I go from there? What happens is, I think that, and why this particular sentence is so critically important to me, is that you continue to have the mastermind and have the honesty, the vulnerability, the openness to allow yourself to be tapped in to your mastermind and to the force within, so that you can receive and give what you want. But the statement of I am is so critically important, to be able to surround your people that also are doing the I am and have the experience. Galen, what do you, I know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Galen, if you don't mind, before you go to Galen for a second, you just reminded me of something that I read today. We're using the EOS system in one of my companies, and we're reading a book called Traction. And one of the things that the author talked about is great leaders. Some of the things that great leaders do is they will always surround themselves with a good team, and they give their team the credit. But he said, in order to create the great team, you must be willing to get naked. And then he said, what does naked means? And it's exactly what you described. And being a great leader yourself, you are demonstrating that. And again, it comes from the masterminding vulnerability, if you will, inside of because if you cannot be vulnerable inside your mastermind group, you may not be in the right group. And right. And so I just had some lights go out behind me, but I just wanted to share that, because going back to what, and we know that Galen is the leadership, guru coach, if you will. And when you talk about iron sharpening iron, brains coming together, this is one of the reasons why all of us, when we're around individuals who we may look up to, they're magnetizing our brains to another level, if you will. So now I just turn it back over to you, Galen. I just want to just say that, because it's amazing how that impacts everything that we do and how we think.
Yeah. So two things. Number one, Pagine, I know that this is your favorite passage of this chapter. And so I wanted to read it again, because I think that there are some cues in the actual text. It says, this method of mind stimulation through harmonious discussion of definite subjects between three people illustrates the simplest and most practical use of the mastermind. And I think the part that you honed in on is the key to this. It's the harmonious discussion of definite subjects. And for me, that means that we're not just chatting, right? When we're in a mastermind group, yeah, there might be a moment of catching up, but we're going deep. And the fact that it's a mastermind group means that we have history. You know the areas that I tend to shy away from, and you know the areas where I tend to be strong. And we tend to bring in people when their strengths are needed. And we tend to hold people accountable when we know that we're getting into areas that they tend to shy away from. And that's the power of the mastermind group. And that's why I think Napoleon Hill in this passage said harmonious discussion of definite subjects. So I think that, I mean, I can see why this is a favorite passage of yours, Pegeen. What are
Yeah,
your thoughts about this area of, because we are a mastermind, because we've got history, because we've had a similar discussion, week after week for years upon years, that I can't run from the things that I would normally run from, if someone didn't know me well. What are your thoughts about that level of accountability?
do you know, I think that personally, I think that there's two pieces of this whole part, right? So one is, am I willing to be vulnerable enough to share my truth, my concerns, my thoughts with the mastermind? And it's not so much a matter of, do I trust the mastermind members, but do I trust myself?
Mm,
Am I allowing myself to grow? If you notice, all the 13 principles are about you, right? You as a person investing in yourself. So your first responsibilities to you is, am I being responsible to myself to be vulnerable and not worry about what you think of me? Most importantly, my goal has to be that I want to be in this mastermind because I want to tap into infinite intelligence and have those people tap into infinite intelligence. So that's the first thing I'm thinking of. The second thing that I am is that it is my responsibility as a member of the mastermind to really listen intently to my other mastermind members, to not get distracted, to not by things outside, to not be thinking about what I'm going to say to them, but to be present, to listen to them so that I am also tapped into the force, so that I am used through my way of speaking to say to you what infinite intelligence wants to say to you. Because that's a piece that we don't like to talk a lot about with the brain and the mastermind. We are being used by infinite intelligence to support you, my mastermind member, for you to achieve your goal, just as you are here to help me as tap into my source. And so how I might say a sentence might be different the way you would say it. So if Anne came in with a and let me just be clear about something. While I adore Anne, I love Anne, I have to be very careful of not putting Anne on a pedestal, because that's not what she needs from me in a mastermind. What she needs from me from a mastermind is to me to be as tapped into my brilliance, my source, my force to support her and her goals, as well as I am for to receive what she or you, Galen, have to say. And I think it's really important that people understand when they say a harmonious discussion, it means that we're not sitting at the foot at anybody's feet, but we are together at each other's feet at different times and being the listener and the receiver of the information. And I do want to share to those people that are watching us right now, I would love you to post in the comments section right now. I would love you to just share, like, how are you vulnerable? What is it that you are doing? And what does this discussion mean to you? What are you getting out of it? Because we really want to see these comments. And so, Anne, I saw you. So what say you?
I want to go back to something Napoleon Hill said about the power of the mastermind. And he tells us simply that no individual, no, not one individual, may have great power without availing him or herself of the mastermind. And so in the creation of our plans, we talked about desire. To translate your desire into money, you must have plans but be persistent. And when you take that along with, we're talking about the brain and the power of the brain, he says that you must also understand that the intangible, here we go with this intangible force, the power of thought, right? Just imagine the power of your thought mixing with the power of your mastermind. You're creating intangible potentialities of power that's available not just to you, but to everybody else in the group, because individuals will have certain things that you don't have, like Galen is saying earlier, and then you're going to have certain attributes that they don't have. And that's what
Right.
makes for a very powerful, powerful, powerful mastermind. But I want to just mention here that there's something that he talks about being this economic feature, the money that comes out of these thoughts. But what happens to all of us is that if we're not in perfect harmony, whatever that is to you, as best and as close as you can get to harmony, then you're not going to be able to have the kind of power that you would desire to have when you tap into the brains of other people. And so this invisible, intangible force, which now we're learning comes from not just one brain, but a collection of brains. And if you notice, when we have different individuals on this show as guests, when we have dialogue back and forth with our participants that's in the chat, that's watching us on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, when we begin to dialogue back and forth like we're doing now, additional power, if you will, additional thoughts. And I almost can see, sparks going from one brain to the other, like some mad scientist, where these things are just, you can't see them, but guess what? They're there. And Napoleon Hill actually calls them units of energy, swarms of energy. And, we've heard that where two or three are gathered. Can anybody finish that for me in the chat? This
Do you
is
want me to go scripture or do you want me to go Napoleon
well,
Hill?
listen, you have been saying passage all morning long. So I just want to get on this passage wagon with you. This is deep. Napoleon Hill tells us in the Mastermind chapter that where two or three are gathered, there's another mind. This is the power, not just of the mastermind, but this is the power of the brain, because we're talking about units of energy. We're talking about the power that comes from the power of thought. Hold this thought one second. Ooh, pun intended. But listen to this. The power of thought. You think a thought, the game builds on top of that thought. I listen to the two of you, I build on top of that thought. Somebody in the chat listens to the three of us, they build on top of that thought. And so this is what happens when you bring certain minds together. Some people call it, you can call it a mastermind. Some people call it, a meeting of the minds. Some people call it, a committee meeting. But all of these things is when you're bringing a collection of minds together and using, and he mentions it in this chapter, creative imagination. And this is one of the reasons why he refers us back to these additional chapters, one being the creative imagination chapter, depending upon what version of the book you have, and the other one being the mastermind. So I just wanted to just share that because this is so very powerful.
Yeah, and I want to tie this back to something that Pagine brought into this, because Pagine, last time you were talking about the harmonious part. And the harmonious doesn't mean that everyone's saying pleasant things and nice things, and we all, passing the tea, that back, teacup back and forth. It means that we're all in pursuit of the same outcome. We're all in pursuit of something greater. And if that means that, Pagine, you've got to get in my face and say, Galen, you're not doing what you said you could do, or and you got to say, Galen, watch your language, stop saying trying. It's not about try, it's about what you're willing to do, right? That's in pursuit of something greater, and that's what the mastermind process is about.
I'm so glad that you said that, because I went in and I did I wanted to find the definition of harmonious relationships. so here's a perfect example of how this was, Anne said something there, Galen was in, which tapped in. So this is a definition from a dictionary. A harmonious relationship, agreement, or discussion is, of course, is friendly and peaceful. Their harmonious relationship resulted in part from their similar goals. To live harmoniously as men and women is an achievement. And when I was reading that just now, I was like, whoa. And as you were talking, is so the key being friendly, peaceful, and achievement. You don't do this, you don't go into this with your brains without achievement as a part of the mission. I want you both and Peter and our guests and our people watching to achieve. It is one of my biggest passions that I really, it's in my DNA to be surrounded by people to that they thrive, that they achieve, that they have the greatest insights, that they become who they choose to and are destined to be. And I truly believe that. I believe that for you, Anne. I believe that for you, Galen. And as we have all experienced, there are times that we just really, 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 really need to allow you in me to say, did you do what you said you were going to do? Are you playing at the highest level? Are is that the best you can do? We think that you could do better. Those kinds of things are because you believe in me too, and I think that that's critically important. Um, and aren't you both going to the annual event?
Yeah, right after Galen gets his word in.
Yeah, one thing again, because this is a thought. Because when we started this conversation, we were talking about how advertisers seem to understand this concept. They seem to leverage this concept. They invest millions, if not billions, in this concept. And so, what can we take from advertisers to program our own brains? So think about it. You see the same commercial over and over and over again. I must see the same commercial 5 times in one football program, right? If you notice, the commercials, they tend to be a little louder than the rest of the program.
Hmm.
The commercials, they tend to have some sort of family, or there's an emotional tug associated with that commercial. And so, how can we use those same principles when it comes to programming our ability to achieve our desire? How can we tell ourselves the same message over and over and over again? How
It's
can
called an
we,
affirmation.
yes, how can we say that message maybe a little louder than what the rest of the world is trying to tell us? How can we speak a little louder to ourselves than what the rest of the world is speaking to us? How can we invoke emotion and attach some emotional element to what we're saying to ourselves, just as the advertisers communicate to us, because they understand it probably a whole lot better than we ever will as individuals.
Well,
So,
it's also called subliminal seduction. Subliminal seduction, Thanksgiving, we talk about, just had that big Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner or New Year's dinner, and the family gathers around, you know, and says, let's go see the newest movie that's out, knowing you can barely make it to the car. You get into that movie theater, and the first thing you notice is the smell of popcorn. $20 a box. And of course, you must have the biggest Coke with the water hanging, just drizzling. I can just see it right now, drizzling down the side. It's so cold and icy. And with a straw, two, one for me, one for you. And another $20. That's $40. And you go in, you get one bite. You put the Coke on one side, you put the popcorn on one side, and then the movie starts. And all of a sudden, the movie's over, and you get up, and on the right and left, you just left $40 and didn't touch it. Why? Because we were subliminally seduced, and it happens all the time. But how do you control it? I want to go back as we prepare to wrap up. You, myself, all of us must pre-program ourselves. For example, if you're an investor or if you have a bill or something that needs to be paid, you are programmed. Not today. I'm going to the movies and I am going to only go to the movie because I'm already full. And again, unless we pre-program ourselves, especially with self-talk and an affirmation, this is where prayers and the meditation and those things come in, then we're opening our minds up to any kind of vibration.
So I just have to jump in here because I think that the people that are watching right now, especially if you're new to this, what does that mean? How do you do it? I know that I was amazed and honestly quite shocked when it dawned on me that I can tell myself whatever I want.
Yes.
I remember thinking for so long that it was almost like I had a war within myself. I had those days where I felt amazing and great, and then I had other days that I just was terrible. I beating myself up, calling myself names, really doing some not recognizing that I was my own worst abuser. I thought that was normal. I thought it was normal to do that until I learned differently, until I started hearing differently, and still I started listening to people and going to places where people like you were sharing information. And when I discovered that one is I have control over what I think and that I can choose to mother myself and love myself and father myself the way that I wanted, and that I had the power to shift my story to be one of, instead of a victim, of being a thriver, a victor. The moment that I started, and for those of you listening, it was really as simple as being able to say, Peggy, I love you. I am amazing. I am great. I am awesome. And truly now, after years of this, I have a couple of triggers that are really important. Every time one of those commercials come in, it's my meditation time. It is, you can ask me, did you say that? Because David does it all the time. Did you see that commercial? I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea because
It's called mute the button.
I have,
Reprogrammed.
well, in that moment, I'm amazing. I'm great. Oh, wow. How fantastic I feel. The moment, like it's a trigger, that's what triggers me. The other thing that, because I've changed my eating and changing all that, I used to think that there was no way I could ever go to a movie and not have popcorn and not have that. I mean, I could have guaranteed you that there was no way. And here I am 3 years later. I'm like, what's the buzz? You just watch the movie, folk. That you don't need to look at, like, and even in those movies, I love adventure movies. I really do. With their ram, ram, ram. You know what I do when everybody said, "Don't watch that violent stuff. It's gonna be." I'm like, no, are you kidding? I'm like, yeah, I'm winning. I'm doing it. I've got it. It's just to learn that is amazing.
Wow. Wow. So we've been talking about the brain, specifically the brain inside of the mastermind and how it really does add power and energy to the mastermind. And I'd love to come back to you because you've got a brand new program that you're rolling out, that you're testing for masterminds. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely, absolutely, Galen. What we're finding is that there are lots of people who really want to better their mastermind experience and be held accountable at a different level for the achievement of their desires, for the achievement of their goals, their aspirations, and create opportunities. And as a result of that, I've been contacted by a number of people wanting to learn how to. And so we created a beta test group, and our next meeting is going to be on December 14th, 2021. And if you're interested in being a part of our beta test, where we're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly, yes, the good, the bad, and the ugly of masterminding, you can reach us by and register by going to International Masterminders with an s.com/group mastermind. Again, you can go to internationalmasterminders.com/group mastermind. And we are using the book, Think and Grow Rich, as a foundation by which to mastermind the 13 principles. Now, in addition to that, since I am talking about that, I'd like to also encourage all of you, please register early. Space is limited. We're still hosting our annual meeting for the International Mastermind Association in Boca Raton, Florida, on the 7th and the 8th of January, 2022. Again, you can go to the internationalmasterminders.com website and you can register, but space is limited. And actually, the price is going up. If you have not registered, we do have a sale going on right now, and that price will be increasing and the space will be decreasing because of, you know, what's going on. I don't have to say it, put it in the atmosphere, but you know, space is limited because we have to stay our distance. And so a lot of people have started registering, and it's awesome. Please plan to bring your family. And if you are currently in a mastermind group like Pekin and some of the other members, please consider encouraging your mastermind group to come. I really want to, you know, challenge all of us. Use this as an opportunity at least once a year for your entire mastermind group to be held accountable for whatever goals they've set in any area of their business and life in writing. That's what we do. Challenge them to join you at our International Mastermind Association annual meeting. This is not a conference, so let me make sure we're clear. There's no keynote speakers. There's no conference bags. No, it's just you and your goals in writing. Again, we had some people in the background excited, so that's what you heard. But we want to encourage all of you listening, please go to internationalmasterminders.com and register because space is limited. I cannot say that enough because I will be standing at the door saying, I'm sorry, you can't get in.
Well, hey, you know, space may be limited, but you're not going to get my spot. I've already paid. I got my air reservation. I'm already starting to do the work. So, yeah, get in where you can.
I have a question, though, since you stepped out there. Oh, we see you coming. You see you coming. So my question to you is, you had the paper in your hand. So what is that experience like now in 1 year later? Honestly, do you have more no's and yeses or more yeses than no's?
You know, it's very, because literally I've started working on that, and I have a whole lot more yeses, and I have yeses in areas that 2 years ago, because my first time coming was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I put a no, and I literally thought to myself, there is absolutely no way. There's absolutely no way I'm going to do this thing. And here I am 2 years later, and it's a yes. It's just, it's so phenomenal. Just the work, the pre-work that goes into getting ready for the conference. Because let me tell you, and I learned this the hard way, Ms. Hannon's not going to let you in the door if you have not done the pre-work. If you have not put your life in writing, you cannot come in the door. Now, she's not hard. She's not mean. She'll give you an opportunity to do it outside the door at the little table. So you still got an opportunity, but you're not walking through that door until you turn in 2 copies of your life in writing.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. I want to do my life.
Well, come on.
Well, I am. I'm going, but now I'm looking at all of my emails because, like, where's my life? Where's my life? Where's going?
Where's my light? That's what I'm asking. Where's my light?
Well, I got. Yeah.
So hey, I just
I'm so excited about coming, and I'm so excited about coming. I'm like a virgin just for the very first. So I have dreams, and I also have I'm looking forward to seeing. This will be the first time, so I want everybody to come because this will be the first time that the four of us have ever been together. So for those of you watching, you think that Galen and I and Peter and I, that we've hung out with each other. We've never hung out with each other except for being on the show. We've never seen each other in person. So I don't know what is below his microphone. I don't even know how big he is. I don't know anything about him. I know that, they don't know about me. We know what we don't, but we don't know. So please join us. We would love to be there, have you be there. We will be happy to take pictures with you so you could post it and keep it together. We will take pictures together with you. So please come and join us.
I also want to remind everybody, please remember to comment, like, and share the show. And we will put the YouTube link in the chat. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel for this organization. We're going to do a contest because we do have a YouTube goal for subscribers that we want to get to. And we would love to have you be a part of that.
So, hey, as we come to a close, I want to go back around and just ask both of you, what are some key nuggets that you either got from this conversation or key insights that the universe, the infinite, just tapped your brain with while we were having this conversation? Pagine, what brilliance came to your mind because of this conversation?
So for me, it was really about thinking about being focused and vulnerable, to be really clear about where I'm going to go. And I really appreciate what you just said, Galen, about, being surprised what you wrote 2 years ago and here you are now. I think that it's what is coming up for me is to really step up in terms of what my inner keeps on telling me, and being willing to share with my mastermind, y'all, and make sure that I'm playing at that highest level all the time and using the force within me that says I can. And the other piece about it is the reminder that one sentence, like we've been studying tonight, one sentence is filled with such richness. Don't rush it. Take your time with this book. Read it over and over and over. There's a reason why Anne's and mine and Galen's book looks like this, because it's not a book that you read. It's a book that you live. And that's what I got from today, this morning.
Fantastic. What about you, Ms. Ann? I know, you know this stuff like the back of your hand, right? You don't ever get anything new out of these conversations.
But I do. And what I got today was something that I did not get to share. And I started talking about the swarms of energy that Napoleon Hill talks about. And it just really helped me to better understand just a little bit about this third mind. And what we didn't hear about was about the fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh and eighth mind. Because two minds does not turn into three. I contend that it turns into many, 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 many more minds. And this is one of the reasons why many of us have had ideas that we did not act on, and somebody else came behind us and acted on the same idea. And you're wondering where'd that come from. And Galen, you talk about this a lot when you say, I read this before and I know it wasn't here the last time. Who put these words in my book? Well, you see, that's your other self showing up. That's the other mind, the brain. You see, because what's happening from that point to the next point is that the connecting of these other brains has helped you to see things differently. And so this is such a powerful conversation. I don't believe we've even began to scratch the surface, but for this morning, this will do. We want to thank all of you for your comments and continuing to support this program. Please also continue to, I cannot say it enough, comment, like, and share, and subscribe. My name is Ann McNeil. I am the Master Wealth Builder, helping you to build a stronger and better life and business. And if you would like to connect, you can text the word ANN at 55678, and you will receive the 6 keys to riches, which is the substance of the first chapter of this book, which simply is the desire chapter. Because again, in order for you to tap into your brain, into another brain, you must have a desire and begin to understand what is it that you are affirming that you want. And so with that, Galen, back to you and Pegeen.
Yeah. Hey, we got to go back to Pegeen. Pegeen, how can people get a hold of you if there are some power women that want to get paid fully for what they do?
So there are 2 ways that you're going to reach out to me. Thank you so much, Galen and Ann, for being part of this. So first, you're going to go to powerwomenworldwide.com, and there you will see resources, information, and insights to help you grow your business and grow you as a leader to be the most powerful leader that you could possibly be. Also, for everybody, if you want to be inspired, uplifted, get information about leadership, confidence, business tips, you have to join Pegeen.club. Oh my gosh, every other day you receive some uplifting information that fills your soul with such confidence, leadership, business, sales, prosperity, and motivation that I put there short, sweet, to the point at Pegeen.club. Would love to have you be a member of it.
All right. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation.
Hey, wait a minute, Galen. What about you?
Well, I'm getting to that. This has been a great conversation. And one of the things that I got from this conversation, and this isn't a new thing, but I've become thoroughly convinced after this conversation, is that either program your brain or be programmed.
Yes.
Either way, your brain is getting programmed. Either you do it, or through neglect, you allow someone else to do it. Either program your brain or be programmed. So that's what I'm taking from this conversation. I absolutely would not have had that if I didn't have my mastermind members on this in this conversation with me. My name is Galen Bingham. I'm the leadership strategist. There are so many ways you can get a hold of me if you want to bake permanent success into your life and work. But I'll tell you, the most fun way is to check out the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership podcast on any platform. I invite leaders to drink good whiskey, talk about jazz, and share what it really takes to be successful. I double dog dare you to check us out just once. We're having a great time just talking to people who have been down the path that you're trying to go down. So that is it for this show. Please join us each and every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern, where we talk through many elements, all of the elements of this classic book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Until next time, take care.